Welcome to episode number 6. And in this episode, we are going to give you the steps to move out of resistance when something's just not working right into that flow state. And I actually tell you one of my favorite stories, and I give you a challenge, which I'm curious to see if any of you have ever done. So enjoy this episode. You're listening to the Silver Lined ReLaunch, and I'm your host, Hillary DeCesar, award-winning entrepreneur and transitional coach. Each week, I'll invite you to tune into inspirational stories, revealing how you too can turn ordinary experiences into the extraordinary. Feeling stuck? I'll share step-by-step strategies to fuel your ability to experience a life where silver linings are both abundant and possible. When everything's a struggle, how do you know it's actually time to try something new, to move on? Have you ever had a goal or wanted something in your life or work or relationships that it just felt like this ongoing battle, and it seemed that every single step forward made you go 2 steps back? And the more you pushed, the more it pulled and yanked and tugged you backwards in time. How do you know when you actually should throw in the towel? Ah, yes, another story. So this one takes me back probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I was heading down to Big Sur. And I was going with my mom, and we were going to have a little escape for a day or two. So excited. Going to do some hiking and just get out in nature. So Mom called me on the way to the airport. Hillary, I forgot my shoes, my running shoes. Can you please bring me some? And I said, hey, no problem. I have an extra pair. I threw them in the bag. Actually, I had a few pairs. Threw them in the bag and went on my way. So next day, we are getting ready to take this big hike that we've been talking about. We're all excited, just so great. My mom says, hey, can I have the shoes that you brought me? And I was so impressed that I actually remembered. I pulled them out and I said, yeah, here they are. And she looks at him and says, these are 2 left shoes. And I looked down and I was like, oh, okay, we are not going to let that sidetrack us from this incredible hike. So I said to her, Mom, just put them on. You'll be fine. And she looked at me and said, you want me to put on the 2 left shoes? I said, yeah, it's not that big a deal. Just put them on. So she puts these 2 left shoes of these 2 tennis shoes. Now, mind you, I had a tendency to, if I found a tennis shoe I really liked, a running shoe, I got like a couple pairs of them so they were the same shoe, but they were just the 2 right shoes, or actually the 2 left shoes of both pairs. So she puts them on and she starts to shuffle her feet and immediately proceeds to fall down. It was incredible. I thought, I looked at her and I said, oh, come on. It's not, you're exaggerating. It's not that hard to walk in 2 left shoes. And she called me Hillary Jane whenever I was, kind of beginning to either piss her off or doing something I wasn't supposed to. And she says, will you try? So I said, fine, I'll try. So I put them on and I started to walk. And I don't know if you've never done this, you have got to do this as an experiment. It is so hard to walk with 2 left shoes. So my point is that, I was literally saying, you could do this, you could do this. And then I tried it and she couldn't. So what ended up happening, she ended up wearing her little flats, and we could barely walk this trail because it was way too steep and everything. And it definitely did not turn out the way we had hoped it would. But how many of us we try and we try to force that square peg into that round hole? And why? Why do we do it? Do we think that by sheer brute force that we're going to make things work? Well, let me ask you, have you ever forced something to happen? And it's for all the wrong reasons. And what inevitably happened? Did it work out for you? Did it fail miserably? Did it prolong the inevitable? Most likely, that's exactly what happened. Because when we are forcing something, when we are forcing a moment, when we are pushing for a business concept that's just not hitting the mark, or when we're pushing for a relationship that isn't going that well, but we're still like, we can make it work, we can make it work. It's like that, the little train that could, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And it just doesn't happen. And the problem is that when you're forcing and forcing, it heightens the state of either overwhelm or underwhelm, or that whole concept of like, why isn't this working? Well, it must be because I'm not trying hard enough. I need to put more time into it, more energy into it. I need to work harder to make it happen. Well, guess what? It just never quite connects. So I call it the pop moment. This is the point of pivot. And yes, this was long before anything happened in the world where pivots were necessary. This is just a concept that I've always thought about. And if you think about a bottle of champagne and you're opening it and you've got that point where it's like, God, it's kind of putting up a little, toughness. You can't really get that last little bit to release the pressure within and let that cork fly out. So you're trying and you're like, oh, but you don't want to like do it too fast because you don't want it to shoot all over and lose all that great champagne. And you can't do it too slow because it's just not working. So you're trying to get that middle point. And it's really allowing yourself to have enough change to impact the velocity of that cork coming out. So how do you know when you need a pop? This amazing point of pivot. How do you know? Well, we've already talked about, hey, nothing's working. Things aren't going forward the way you think the momentum should. There's that major resistance. You need to ask yourself, am I forcing this? Am I forcing this relationship, this project, this company? Or is this really in a flow state? And 99% of the time, it is not in that flow state. And we all know that state where like things are jamming, things are happening, things are good. There is no tension, no force. There's nothing holding you back. So in working with clients, I like to take them through these 3 steps. And these are 3 things that you can do if you're right now figuring out like, gosh, this is what Hillary's saying. I'm in a state of like stalled out, or I'm in this resistance. Well, let's just ask yourself. Number 1, go back to your why. why are you actually doing what you're doing? And does it still serve you and the direction that you were hoping to eventually take this into? Is that the relationship? Where did you ultimately want this to go? I get this a lot with relationship, with marriages that are just stalled, with dating that is just, it's just not working. Well, you need to ask yourself, why are you in it? Why are you doing this? What was your intention from the beginning? And if it's not in alignment, you got to modify. Why continue down that path? Modify. Change up one small little movement, one small little thing like that cork, moving it just a small bit, because that can literally unleash exactly what you were hoping for. Number 2, how are you feeling? Are you nervous about it? Are you fearful? Something's not working? Because if you're focused on your nervousness, your anxiety, your fears, then guess what? That's exactly what's going to show up. And you have to be able to break away from where you are, because what do we do when we're like, trying to make something happen? We just keep going at it, right? We think more is better. And right now I'm going to tell you less is more. And so what can you do? You step away, you take a break. Maybe it's a couple hours, maybe it's a day of not thinking about it. Have you ever had that moment where you actually give yourself time to not think about something and then a solution comes? And then you know exactly what your next step should be. That's what I'm talking about. When you have reached that point where you are getting the resistance, you need to take a step back. You need to take an hour, 2 hours to do something that is removing yourself from whatever it is. Number 3, you need to imagine your life not doing what you're doing. If this didn't work, if this project blew up, if this company wasn't sold, if this relationship didn't work out, think about what your life would look like instead. And when you go through these 3 things, then all of a sudden you can get real perspective. And that's the best part, because it's super, super easy to get caught up in, but I'm in this so far. We've been together this long. I have too much invested. But wouldn't you rather spend years in a flow state in the future than to spend year upon year upon years in that resistant state? And it's like going out, and it's so much easier to put on the right pair of shoes than to put on the 2 unmatching ones, or the ones that are too small, or the ones that are too big. There's a right pair for you. You just need to be open to making sure that they're the right fit. At this point, I want you to go out and, with this small transformation, identify things in your life. Identify things that are in flow and the ones that are in resistance. And then start making these changes with the ones in the resistant area, and see how this opens up the things that you really want in your life to start coming in fast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you felt a connection to this episode of the Silver Lined ReLaunch, please head over to iTunes now. It would mean so much to me if you would leave a good review and help others find silver linings as well. And don't forget, You can have immediate access to all of the bonuses and notes from the show today in our treasure chest, which you have access to for free by texting 55444 and typing in treasure chest. Or you could go to our private Facebook group, The Relaunch Effect, Living a Life You Love. Together we've hit the reset button for you, turning your transitions into a transformation. Until next time, don't forget, there's always a silver lining.